to The Busy Signal. My name is Jim, and this is my retrostalgic 80s, 90s, and early 2000s podcast. This show aims to salute all the stuff from back in the day that is now extinct or quickly going that way. The Busy Signal, episode 39. Thanks for listening. It seems like out of all of the retrostalgic topics we cover here on The Busy Signal, there is no shortage of board games to pull from. And I kind of like that, because that's how it was back in the day. There was always a new board game being advertised on TV or showing up on the Toys R Us shelves. But even if you watched all the TV commercials and were lucky enough to be visiting TRU on the regular and memorized all the Sears Wish Book toy sections, there was always board games that somehow slipped by you. You'd go over a friend's house and they'd pull out a box and say, "Hey, you want to play insert game here?" And you'd be like, "What's that game?" And before you know it, you'd be begging your parents to buy that game. It'd be your new favorite game. And in a time before mobile gaming, board games were how we had fun. In person, with friends and family. I know board games still exist, but I'm not sure it's the same. So we're digging deeper into the old toy closet for more board games. And friend of the show, George, is joining me. Welcome back, George.
Hey, Jim, how's it going?
Really good. I feel like it's been forever since we've talked.
Well, it's been a while since we saved Christmas with Ernest, and I got some nice. I actually got a couple cool board games for Christmas, so I've been busy playing.
Excellent. I love these board game episodes. It teaches me that as I get older, I don't like board games.
Can't have it all, I guess.
I love the idea of board games. I like remembering the board games that I played. I think they're fascinating. But when I try and sit down and play board games, nobody likes me anymore. So it's obviously me. I'm not a good board game player, but I still love board games. I love watching other people play board games.
You like watching people play board games?
Yeah, I'd rather sit there and watch you play a board game than play the board game. That is weird. You know, it's just what it is.
We'll stick to talking about board games.
Yes, I love talking about board games. Don't put a pair of dice in my hand. So, just like all the other installments, this is our fourth installment of the board games on the Busy Signal. You have 3 board games. I have 3 board games. We do not know what our board games are. So, just like you said way back on episode 1 of the board games, we're going to play a game about the games that we played when we were kids. And just like every time, I'm going to roll the dice and we're going to find out who's going first. Surprise, surprise. You're up first.
All right, I win already. Well, I am fairly confident that you do not have this. And part of the reason is because for a little bit, I wrote this game down. I was going to talk about it. And then I started to doubt myself. And I don't know if this has ever happened to you. Do you have memories from your childhood that seem really clear and really distinct? And then you start to question if they were real?
Yes.
Well, I wrote this game down and then I started to question whether this was an actual game. I know you're the guy who usually goes on YouTube and finds all the clips, but for this game, I actually went on YouTube myself to make sure it was real. And believe it or not, it was. It's a game called Stuff Your Face.
Okay, so I remember Stuff Your Face being a thing, but I don't exactly remember how it goes.
Well, you probably blocked it out of your memory because this game is nightmare inducing. So here's how the game works. There are 2 clowns that are facing each other.
So many people are out already. They're like, nope.
And each of these clowns have puppet hands that you control. And in between these 2 clowns is a concaved board that is filled with colored marbles. What you do is you take the little puppet hands of the clowns, you scoop the marbles up, and then you lift the marble up to your clown's mouth and drop it in.
This is terrifying.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I can't believe I played this as a child.
Reminiscent of Happy Gilmore. You're gonna die, clown!
So the game's pretty simple. The clown that swallows the most marbles at the end of the game is the winning clown. And then you go to sleep and have nightmares.
This is demented, hungry hippos.
It's made by Milton Bradley. This is a real legit game that was really in 6-year-old George's closet. This game came out in 1983.
Ready, set, go!
They're playing Stuff Your Face, the funny, frantic, marble-grabbing game from Milton Bradley. Each player works a pair of puppet hands. to grab up marbles and stuff them in his puppet's face. The action's fast and furious, and whoever stuffs the most marbles wins the game. Stuff your face. For Milton Bradley, some assembly required.
So I was 6 when this game came out. I don't know if I had it right away, but this was probably before, it came out and we were, as a society,
the movie, right?
Yes. The TV miniseries that came out that traumatized the entire world about clowns.
This would not be in my closet. If it was, it would be buried. No way.
I got to find this now. This is nightmare fuel.
Some old decrepit dusty box with this clown that's all smashed up. No thanks.
So this game is basically a slower paced Hungry Hippos with clowns.
Yeah, with twisted clowns. No thanks. Wow.
So there we go. We're off and running.
This was a 2-player game?
Yep, 2 players. So you faced each other. So you had to watch the other clown jamming marbles.
It was a race to choke out your clown?
No, you couldn't quite. It's fun. Like, I would get to the point where I tried to knock one hand, slap the marbles out of the other hand. Yeah, so it was real and it was terrifying.
That's fantastically awful. In 1995, Robin Williams and a very young Kirsten Dunst starred in an adventure movie like no other. A movie about a board game, Jumanji. Yeah, an adventure for those who seek to find a way to leave their world behind. Remember Jumanji?
Oh, I do. I got to Jumanji a little bit later, more in my teens and early 20s. But yeah, I definitely remember the movie and I definitely remember the game.
Okay, yeah. So here's my experience with Jumanji. And as I was looking up Jumanji, because I'm like, all right, we're going to do Jumanji. This is a great game because not only was it a game, but it was a really rad movie. But as I started looking into it, I was like, wait a minute. Jumanji was a book first? And I thought to myself, oh, I want to read that book. It sounded like a novel possibly, But it wasn't. And all of a sudden I saw the cover of this book. Boom. Had memories just start unlocking all over the place. I remembered being 7 years old or 6 years old in first grade. And Mr. Coates, my first grade teacher, is reading me this really awesomely illustrated picture book called Jumanji. And I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this. And then I looked at the illustrations and they're very familiar. Not because I've seen Jumanji before or read the book before, which they were familiar because of that, but the style of how they were done. And I found out the book was written by Chris Van Allsburg in 1981. And if you're not familiar with Chris Van Allsburg by name, he's also the author of another children's book, published in 1985, also with another major motion picture attached to it, The Polar Express. And just like the Polar Express book, Jumanji had these amazing artworks for the pictures, and they were award-winning artworks for these pictures. He's got so many books just through the 80s that are pretty much just like this, and they are not attached. They're all standalone. And when I looked into it, all of them have some kind of movie company that owns the rights to them. So at any point, another one can get made, and we'll see if we see Chris Van Allsburg hit the silver screen again. Who knows?
That's really neat. I don't think I knew any of that.
Yeah, it's a really cool book if you look it up. As a matter of fact, it's been, 30 years since I've even thought of that book. I forgot all about it, even though I've seen the movie. Anyway, of course Milton Bradley had a physical Jumanji available as soon as the movie was released.
Jumanji, it can make an ordinary man go wild. And a normal kid
Keep your hands!
go ape. It's unstoppable. It's unpredictable. It's the world of Jumanji. Robin Williams, Jumanji.
Literally, you could walk out of the movie theater and go purchase Jumanji at Toys R Us.
Jumanji!
It's a movie about a game.
Jumanji! Jumanji!
Now the game comes to you.
Jumanji! Jumanji!
Are you adventurous enough to face the game's perils?
Jumanji!
Conquer it.
Jumanji! 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 Jumanji!
Or it can conquer you. It's a movie about a game. Now the game is playing at a store near you. Jumanji from Milton Bradley.
Jumanji!
And just like the movie, the game is complicated and frustrating. I'm not saying that it's not fun, but it's really frustrating. Like, it's a turn-based game of chance with dice, and there's cards to pull from, and there's a doomsday grid and danger cards. And at any point in time, you could find yourself needing to be rescued, and everybody else in the game now has to be bothered to rescue you. They're wasting their turns trying to rescue you. There's such havoc and chaos that can end up on the board. You could be blocked by rhinoceroses and a whole bunch of other just wild movie-esque obstacles. And if all of those danger cards get pulled and they fill that doomsday grid, it is absolutely an option to have nobody win this game. Nobody.
That's my memory of this game is, man, it was busy. There was a lot going on. And yes, you could play this game for like a half hour and then no one ends up winning. Now, that being said, I actually think that's really the premise of a lot of contemporary games. There are a lot of board games now that are kind of cooperative. In fact, I just got one that we played the other night where we had to work together to get these things and get off an island. And they can be fun, but this was a really early version of this. And there was just so much going on that I don't remember this game being particularly compelling, or I couldn't wait to get back and play it again. So
I never owned the game, but I did encounter the game several times at like friends' houses, and they'd be like, "Hey, you want to play Jumanji?" And the first time I was like, "Yeah, let's play Jumanji. I'll be Robin Williams. Where's that character?" And then you realize this game is hardcore. For 1995, the concept of this game is hardcore. And as a 14-year-old, I don't think I had the patience for that.
no, it was a little bit ahead of its time, but hadn't quite worked out the kinks of how these cooperative games, especially cooperative board games, work.
It has been reworked a couple times. I do believe Jumanji is still available as a game, probably still, of course, with the newer movie installments that happened in 2017, 2019. I'm sure Jumanji is probably evolved.
Ooh, can I play as The Rock?
Yeah, as long as I don't have to play as Jack Black.
All right. Well, you talked about Jumanji, which is a game that was a little bit ahead of its time. And so I'm going to move up one of mine. I was going to save this for last, but do you remember a game called Boulder Dash?
I remember in name only. I remember it being, was it the 80s or the early 90s?
It was Boulder Dash was actually around in the 80s. I don't think I played it until late 80s, early 90s at the earliest, because it was a very interesting game, and I think a game that spawned a lot of the games that we play today. So here's how the game worked. In Boulder Dash, the person, when it was your turn, you would select a card, and this card would have a word on it, but usually it was a word that you had never heard of. The English language has hundreds and thousands of words, many of which we don't use and don't know what they mean. Well, Boulder Dash had just card after card with these obscure English words, and it would have the definition on there. So that when it's your turn, you would read the word, and then the other people that were playing, and this was a multiplayer game, so it worked best when you had 4 or 5 people, their job was to write a definition for this word. Now, every once in a while, you'd get a word and you're like, man, I know that definition, and you'd write down the right definition. But most of the time, you had no idea what these words were. So you had to invent a definition for this word. So you were making up, it was Boulder Dash. You were just making up some goofy definition, and then you would give it back to the person. They would read all the bogus definitions along with the real definition, and then they'd go back around and you would have to vote on which definition was the real one. So if you wrote a bogus definition and someone picked your definition, you'd get points. If you guessed the right definition, you'd also get points for that. And that's how the scoring in this game worked.
Disselfink.
Yeah, well, it's a little known fact that a disselfink is a filter that purifies Amazon River water.
A disselfink is a stylized bird found in Pennsylvania Dutch art.
Well, yeah, it also took on that meaning after the Eisenhower administration.
It's Boulder Dash, the game where you don't have to know the definition to wacky real words. Just bluff them.
Wangdillo.
Sure, well, that's a armadillo who's been run over by a truck full of guitars. Play Boulder Dash. It's the definition of a good time.
It was great. Like, I had some kind of go-to bogus definitions that I would use in various games.
Oh, that's great.
It was a lot of fun. You thought outside the box. You listened to what the words sounded like, and you're like, all right, I can come up with a boink definition for that. And it was a lot of fun.
I absolutely remember this game now, and I love the concept. Gosh, I kind of wish I had this game. This is not a typical board game. I would play this game.
It's not. And it's funny, I don't see this game anywhere. Like, I remember loving this game, and I probably didn't play it till my teen years, but man, I love this game, and it's just completely gone. Now, I do think the idea of this game has been replaced like by games like Apples to Apples and
Right.
things
Okay.
like that. And my issue with those games is I hate these games where it's just up to the person which one is the right answer.
Right.
I like Boulder Dash because there actually was a right answer.
So I was an English major in college. I pride myself in my rather extensive vocabulary that I choose not to employ most times. However, if I want to drop some big 25-cent words, I can. This game is right up my alley.
I know.
I want to play this game.
Yeah, this game was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. Did you ever have one of those word of the day calendars?
It would help you grow your vocabulary, yeah.
Yeah, if there's a game that helped you expand your vocabulary, this would be it.
Either that or just improve your lying skills. How convincing can I be?
Talk over them or talk around them.
This one is also one that I think I picked a lot of them that I never had, but I encountered out in the wild. But this one I never encountered personally, but I always wanted to because I'd see the commercial and I'd be like, that game just looks so cool. Like every kid has that one toy or game that they just thought was the coolest thing ever, but they never got it. That was this game for me. Although I can't remember if I actually ever asked for it either. So that might be on me. George, would you consider Dominoes a board game?
I mean, it's a table game. I'll give it to you.
Have you ever heard of Domino Rally?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Introducing Domino Rally.
This was a Saturday morning commercial. I feel like that was on for years, man.
Yes,
I
it
love
was.
Domino Rally, yes.
Yes. This thing was wild. Like, it was not a turn-based board game. It could be played by one person. And for a kid, the best part of Dominoes...
And now, Super Deluxe Neon Domino Rally. Get all 4 sets.
...was standing them up, tapping that one-end piece, and watching that chain reaction, right?
Oh, yes. Yes. Jim, I'm with you. I definitely wanted this game, but I definitely never owned it.
Right. So this is exactly what Domino Rally was about. The crazy chain reaction. There were bridges, loops, stairs, motorcycle guys riding on a rail somewhere, rockets blasting off, flying paragliders, neon glow in the dark. It was just wild. Like, this was a kid's dream. But here's the thing. It looks like it was terrible.
We got saved.
I feel like I dodged a bullet because every time I watched somebody online that actually had Domino Rally, it did not work right. Like there was always like dominoes that would go off and not hit the next domino. So now you've got to tap. There's no fun in having to tap several times. You want that one, boom, it all happens, you know? Or the rocket wouldn't blast off.
Oh, no.
Yeah, or the motorcycle guy would fall off his rail. Or while you're setting it up, how long do you think it takes to set up Domino Rally? There are sets that go from 200 pieces to 500 pieces. And you've got to set these things up. That might take you a while. And if you only get halfway through and accidentally tap one, and it sends off that chain reaction, that's frustrating.
Now, have you ever tried to set up dominoes yourself?
Yes.
Okay, so have I. And I have definitely like gotten like a half hour in and hit something and you're just done. It's over. And like, I tried that.
That's it. So Domino Rally tried to solve that. I don't know if you remember this in their commercials. They had this little car that you would load up this big magazine of dominoes. It would set up the dominoes for you. It would space them out properly. And then you could have this little attachment that you'd put on it. And then this little vehicle that was setting up your dominoes would add like curve, where you could set it where it'd be zigzag.
Introducing the Domino Rally Pathmaker, a whole new way to set up your dominoes. Snap on one of the design discs, and it'll automatically set up curves, circles, and more. The Domino Rally Pathmaker set comes with cool stunts and 200 dominoes, and works with all Domino Rally sets.
But the thing with the dominoes is they were plastic and they were hollow. So when they were being punched out during manufacturing, there would be little chads on them. There would be little tabs. There would be little burrs, plastic burrs. And sometimes they just wouldn't set up properly. And it would really just mess up the whole process because they were just so light. Sometimes you'd get it and they wouldn't knock over the one in front of it. And there you are again. It just looked like a headache more than anything else. So I really feel like as cool as those commercials were, those commercials were heavily edited.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention, this took a lot of room sometimes. These 500-piece sets, you'd have to take up a whole room sometimes. And if somebody or the dog runs through or somebody's stepping a little too heavy, boom, there goes your whole set. Gone.
Your little sister runs by. What are you doing? I spent 3 hours on this.
Gone. Or you set off the whole thing. Let's just say the whole thing sets off. I watched some guy from the early 90s. He was on a news show and he was showing all these toys and he was featuring Domino Rally. He set the chain reaction off. Rocket didn't go off. Like, that's not a really good selling point right there.
Well, I'm glad we both missed out on that one. Is that the most rage quit one we've ever had?
It might be, because imagine the pain it takes to set up Mousetrap.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Domino Rally might be even worse. I mean, there are pieces of Domino Rally where the dominoes were actually fixed to some of the pieces and you could flip them up kind of like Guess Who cards and they would stay up. But out of 200 pieces, there's only 20, 25 of them that do that. No. This might be the one like you set it up, you only get halfway through it, or you set it up and it doesn't go off the way it should. Back in the box, in the closet, under the clown game. All right, George, where are we going next? What's your board game?
All right, here's my last one. And this is a game I really loved. And I had to be honest with you, this is definitely one that I loved most of all for the commercial. Have you ever heard of a game called Crossfire?
Stop it. That's the game I'm doing next.
Yes!
We got one.
It took 3 episodes, but I stopped.
Yes! Crossfire. Yes, I saved it for last too.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Do you remember the commercial?
Crossfire! Yes.
Yeah, so first of all, the commercial, you got these two people that are flying in. You got hair metal going on.
This is post-apocalyptic.
Yes, this is awesome. Somewhere in the distant future. Yeah, this game's awesome.
It's sometime in the future. The ultimate challenge. Crossfire. Crossfire. You get caught up in the crossfire. Crossfire. You get caught up in the crossfire. 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 You'll get caught up in it.
This game is legitimately fun too. So here's how the game works. Again, kind of a concaved middle there. And they had these spinning things. They were in the middle was a larger ball bearing.
Yeah, they called them pucks.
Oh, okay. They were the pucks, but they spun. And you had these two little guns that you loaded with ball bearings and shoot at these pucks. And if you hit the pucks just right, you would move them towards the other team's side. And then, you tried to shoot them in their goal on their side. And if you got the most of these pucks into the other team's side, you were the winner. So it's a little hungry hippos. It's a little shoot 'em up, but it was super fun. I loved playing this game. Apparently, I just had one friend, and man, I played a lot of two-player games.
That's so funny. So for me, if there were a 90s commercial Hall of Fame,
oh yeah, this
Crossfire
is it. I love this commercial.
In there.
Crossfire!
This hits all of the check boxes for me. Future post-apocalyptic setting, check. Electric guitar-driven heavy metal voice jingle, check. One-on-one ultimate challenge, check. Fire-covered board game with lightning bolts, double check. If you were not a kid in the 90s, you don't know. You don't know the grip that the Crossfire jingle had on everybody. It was a fantastic game. It actually came out in 1971, and the original board was flat. And then it became this kind of little bit dome-shaped.
Yep.
For us in the 90s or 80s and 90s. But the problem I found with that was sometimes your puck would get stuck on the edges. So they fixed that, I guess, in like the 2010s. There's been several versions of Crossfire, but only one super hardcore heavy metal Crossfire commercial. Like, I don't see Crossfire commercials anymore.
No. All right. Do you want to know how much I love this game?
Yes.
All right. So I'm not exaggerating here. I was a youth pastor for many years. I had youth group, and we do games at youth group. So we did live action Crossfire. So we'd be in our gym right?
Wow.
And we'd have enough kids that I'd put kids on 4 sides. And I went out and I bought a really big but light ball. And I would sit in the middle and we'd have kids surrounding 4 sides of this ball. And then I had 8 smaller balls. And the kids had to throw the ball at the big ball and try and get it to go across the other team's line. If they did, they got a point. And we just kept playing this. So we literally played live action Crossfire. It was so awesome. The kids loved this game.
That's so funny. So here, real quick, apparently Atari had developed an arcade version of Crossfire and was supposed to release it in 1975. But for some reason, it was scrapped. It never happened.
Ugh.
There were a few prototypes that were made, and I'd love to see if somebody still has one of these, if it's still working, what an arcade version of Crossfire looked like, and if instead of like a joystick, it had like, a gun. That would have been amazing.
Great game. Oh, I'm so excited. Now you're stuck. What
Yes,
are you going to do? You got a bonus game there.
I included the Atari version of Crossfire just
I feel
now.
like I won this
That's
podcast.
it. You knocked me out.
Yeah, I won on board games.
That's amazing. Fantastic. All right. Well, George, it was awesome having you here. Thank you for coming and joining me for Board Games. You and I are in talks after 4 board game episodes now. We've covered approximately 24, actually 23. I thought it was going to be 24. It's 23 epic board games so far. And I am literally in my head writing down more games for a future installment. So let me ask you real quick before you go. You know how I feel about board games. You know what my how I feel about certain ones. Is there one that you just don't like or won't play?
Board game now that I won't play. I have a board game that my kids got for me called Villainous. And I have read through the rules 3 times now. I've watched the YouTube video on how this game works. I can't figure it out.
Oh, wow. If you can't figure it out, that's serious.
I know. I've spent over an hour and a half trying to figure out how this game works, and I still have not played it. I don't know. Like, I may someday figure this game out, and it may become my favorite game ever. But right now,
not so much.
That's not so high on my list. So it's a life goal to figure out how to play Villainous.
So
somebody out there is listening to this, and you're like, you're an idiot. But
no, there's probably a lot of people with villains on their shelves right now going, yeah, I'm with you, dude. George, thanks again for stopping by and talking board games. Good game, buddy.
All right. I'll see you soon.
Later on. Bye.
Bye.
Is there a game that you, the listener, thinks should be on a future episode of Board Games here on the Busy Signal? A childhood favorite that just hasn't been covered yet on our Board Games episodes? Hit me up on Instagram at BusySignalCast and drop a comment. Shoutouts will be given to anyone who suggests a game that gets in the episode. Trust me, it's not going to be that hard. There's been tons of stuff on the Instagram right now. All the show commercials in their entirety, as well as new themes each week. The past couple weeks have been dedicated to Super Mario and pizza chains. So slap that follow button for a daily shot of nostalgia. And if you liked this episode, consider subscribing on Apple or Spotify. And while you're there, maybe hook the show a 5-star rating and a positive review. I read all reviews and all cool Insta comments on future shows. So yeah, big thanks to George for hanging out and doing board games. I can't believe we finally, after 4 episodes, had crossover. Of course, the crossover would be on Crossfire. Totally appropriate. So that's about all the time we have for this one. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. Catch you later. Once again, I'd like to say thanks for listening. And as always, you can listen to The Busy Signal everywhere quality podcasts are streamed. Hit the subscribe button to have a new episode delivered directly to your favorite device every other Friday. If you really like the show, leave a 5-star rating or a positive review on Apple and Spotify. That lets everybody else know to come check out what you already think is awesome. You can also head over to Instagram and follow the show at BusySignalCast for even more retro-nostalgic content. I share a good amount of fun stuff that isn't mentioned on the episodes. While you're there, say hi in the comments. Don't be shy. And until next time, remember, reach out and touch the past.
You